The definition of genocide is something that few people understand and many people misuse. So let's do some learning and have some fun as well. Given that the word genocide isn't well understood, many fictional characters get accused of the crime. But how many are actually guilty of it? For this video, I'm going to be using the legal definition of genocide as outlined by the United Nations and the International Criminal Court. The Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide was put into place in 1948 by the United Nations and outlines 5 crimes related to genocide. The crimes are genocide, conspiracy to commit genocide, direct and public incitement to commit genocide, attempt to commit genocide, and complicity in genocide. There are also 5 acts that can become genocidal if carried out with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. These are killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting upon the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Many of these characters exist in worlds without a UN or ICC, so let's just pretend that we're going to charge them in a modern court. King Aegon I Targaryen is an important character in A Song of Ice and Fire. Aegon was the founder of House Targaryen as well as the Targaryen dynasty, in which he ruled as its first king, as well as being the first to sit on the Iron Throne. His conquest of Westeros is filled with barbarity, but I wouldn't call it genocide, given that Aegon never destroys a national group that doesn't bend the knee. His intention is not to destroy, but rather to rule. My verdict is not guilty.
You will live to watch your daughter rot, to watch that beautiful face collapse to bone and dust.
Cersei Lannister is one of the main antagonists of A Song of Ice and Fire and its television adaptation, Game of Thrones. In both incarnations, Cersei is portrayed as cruel, manipulative, callous, ruthless, and above all else, power-hungry and narcissistic. Her narcissism is perhaps her most prominent trait, as she is immensely self-centered and arrogant due to her status as a queen and a Lannister. Out of her many terrible actions, her destruction of the Great Sept of Baelor and the murder of the High Sparrow and the rest of his order is what brings her to this list. The Sparrows are a splinter group of the Faith of the Seven and are a major threat to Cersei's power. Most Sparrows are inside of King's Landing, and almost all of them are killed in the Great Sept explosion. Due to her actions, motivated by a desire to hold on to power by removing her enemies, Cersei Lannister is guilty of conspiracy to commit genocide due to her planning with Lord Qyburn and others, and genocide due to the destruction of a large percentage of the religious order known as Sparrows.
Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague.
Agent Smith is the leader of the Agents, who later become a computer virus. Smith was created by the Architect along with his fellow agents in order to protect the Matrix, but is freed from this purpose after Neo defeated him in the first film, leading him to turn on the machines and set himself to destroy them along with mankind. Smith's goal of destroying all of humanity isn't genocidal, as humans and machines aren't part of the same species. Rather, the action that could charge Smith with genocide is his attempt to destroy other machines, which could be called a subgroup of his own. My verdict, though, is not guilty, though more investigation into Smith's relationship toward other programs is needed to fully make a evaluative decision.
Shen returned to his parents full of pride, but in their faces, he saw only horror.
Lord Shen is the main antagonist of Kung Fu Panda 2. He is a sadistic, devious, and power-hungry peacock prince who wanted to use fireworks create deadly cannons in order to conquer all of China and annihilate Kung Fu. He was prophesied to be defeated by a warrior of black and white, motivating him to wipe out the pandas. Given that all animals in Kung Fu Panda are part of the same basic moral structure, Shen's actions wouldn't fall under attacking a different species in the same way as other villains. For the sake of the argument, pandas are a subgroup of animals, and Shen's extermination of them could be argued as genocide. Due to his actions caused by fear for his own survival, Lord Shen is guilty only of genocide. His wolves weren't involved in the choice to commit these actions, so there would be no conspiracy. Bolivar Trask is a character in the film X-Men Days of Future Past, as well as the X-Men comics. He is a brilliant but ruthless industrialist and weapons tycoon who believed that mutants posed an existential threat to humanity and invented anti-mutant tools called Sentinels to eventually eradicate them all. Here, I would like to establish a new clause in this video when it comes to genocide. Along with the other groups protected by genocide, I'm going to add another, altered humans, which are humans who have been gifted with powers or abilities. This also falls in line with the core allegory of mutants in Marvel Comics, which is as a stand-in to minority groups. Trask's creation of the Sentinels isn't a crime, but the utilization of his weapons is. But Trask doesn't have control over how his weapons are used after he sells them, but the Sentinels are created to fight mutants, so Trask is aware of who is going to be targeted by them. Another problem with charging Trask with these crimes is that he is an American citizen and the United States isn't part of the International Criminal Court because it would allow the trial of US citizens for crimes committed on US soil, which is unconstitutional. However, the dystopian future in X-Men Days of Future Past suggests that the Sentinels have attacked mutants worldwide, which means that if the United Nations Security Council allowed the ICC to prosecute Trask, they theoretically could. Due to Trask's personal ideology behind his weapons and his knowledge of how they were going to be used, Bolivar Trask is guilty of complicity in genocide. Darth Vader, born Anakin Skywalker, was a high-ranking Jedi Knight who fought for the Galactic Republic. However, by the end of the Clone Wars, due to multiple tragedies he faced, he turned to the dark side and would become a powerful and ruthless Sith Lord in service to the newly risen Galactic Empire and its Emperor. Anakin carried out a purge of the Jedi Order, which is a religious group. Following that, Anakin engaged in countless atrocities in the name of the Galactic Empire. While these actions are crimes, his massacre of the Jedi is the only action that would fall under genocide. Due to his actions motivated by anger toward the Jedi Order, Anakin Skywalker is guilty of conspiracy to commit genocide due to his planning and following the orders of Darth Sidious, complicity in genocide, allowing Order 66 and other such actions to be carried out, and genocide through his personal murder of countless Jedi.
You should imagine thousands upon thousands of your people dead. This town of yours reduced to ashes. Imagine it gone, made radioactive, buried under dirt as if it had never existed, like District 13.
President Coriolanus Snow is the main antagonist of the Hunger Games trilogy. He is the tyrannical president of Panem. Normally, actions against your own population don't fall under genocide, as Snow is trying to hold on to power rather than punish a specific group. But this becomes more complicated when District 13 declares war and Snow begins to commit crimes against those of a different nationality. But these are taken against enemy combatants, and once again, they aren't to punish a specific group rather than force them to submit. His actions are definitely war crimes, but my verdict is not guilty of the crime of genocide. The High Prophets of Regret, Mercy, and Truth are the three hierarchs of the Covenant Empire in the Halo video games. Their ultimate goal was to assume full control of the Covenant and to activate the Halo rings to wipe out all life in the galaxy in order to remake their galaxy in their image, with the Covenant heralding them as gods. Out of the three, the Prophet of Truth was the most dangerous, but all three have actions that could be classified as genocide. Their crimes are immense and carried out on a galactic scale in the name of a religious quest known as the Great Journey. This moves their actions from the destruction of other species to an act of religious violence. Due to their actions motivated by religious extremism, the Prophets of Regret, Mercy, and Truth are guilty of conspiracy to commit genocide due to the fact that they planned with one another, as well as several other alien groups, direct and public incitement to commit genocide, filling the Covenant with religious extremism, and attempting to commit genocide. The attempt to use the Halo rings to destroy all other life, as well as genocide due to their prior actions to launch the Great Journey. The Didact is a major antagonist in Halo 4. He is an ancient Forerunner warlord and the creator and master of the Prometheans, who intend on corrupting the entire human race as he viewed them as the greatest threat to the galaxy. The Didacts plan to wipe out the human race. This would normally be a cut and dry not guilty because wiping out a species isn't genocide. But you could make the case that both the Forerunners and humanity are both created by the Precursors and could be a subgroup of one another, but my verdict is not guilty by reason of acts committed on other species. Paul Atreides is the protagonist of Dune and his sequel novel, Dune Messiah. He's the last Duke of the noble House Atreides who later ascends the throne of the Padishah Emperor. Paul orchestrates a jihad across the universe, resulting in the death of billions. Paul also takes advantage of the Fremen's religious beliefs, positioning himself as their Masonic figure to achieve his goals. Paul's jihad is his greatest crime, killing billions of people. This constitutes an act against religious groups, as the Fremen are attacking groups that are opposed to their faith. While Paul doesn't take part in this war, he does little to stop his followers. Due to the fact that Paul doesn't share his followers' reason for carrying out these atrocities, Paul is guilty of complicity in genocide because he's giving his followers what they want rather than fulfilling his own personal ideology. Judge Claude Frollo is the antagonist of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, based on Victor Hugo's 1831 novel. He is a religious fanatic who uses his position as Minister of Justice in the city of Paris to enrich himself and persecute those he considers inferior, especially the city's Romani population. Frollo is a manipulative and conniving villain whose actions are based on the belief that they are ordained by God. Throughout the film, Frollo engages in many personal and intimate crimes, but his crusade to rid Paris of Romani is his greatest offense. The slow oppression of the Romani is implied to have been going on for years under Frollo's orders. By the end of the film, Frollo enacts a full purge of the city, which leads to dozens of burning buildings, implying that Frollo's soldiers are rooting out the Romani population. Due to his actions, motivated by religious prejudice and extremism, Judge Claude Frollo is guilty of conspiracy to commit genocide, due to the years-long project to impress and remove the Romani from Paris, direct and public incitement to commit genocide by using the church to increase public hatred of groups he deemed inferior, and genocide, his purge at the end of the film. Eren Yeager is the main protagonist of Attack on Titan. He's a former member of the Survey Corps, the leader of the Jaegerists, and the last inheritor of the Attack Titan. While initially presented as a heroic protagonist, Eren gradually becomes an extremist villain by committing several violent acts for what he claims to be the sake of his nation. While Eren isn't targeting one nationality, his actions still amount to genocide by attacking every other nationality. This could also be considered violence against those who don't have the blood of Ymir, but either way, it is still genocide. Due to his actions motivated by anger and revenge, Eren Yeager is guilty of conspiracy to commit genocide, his work with the Jaegers to bring about the rumbling, and attempt to commit genocide by starting the rumbling.
That sounds an awful lot like genocide.
No, because it's random. And I might add, efficient.
Thanos isn't guilty of genocide, killing half of all life is indiscriminate, and isn't targeting one group. Not guilty. Ultron is the main antagonist of Avengers Age of Ultron. He was introduced as a peacekeeping program created by Tony Stark and co-created by Bruce Banner. Upon gaining sentience, however, Ultron deemed humanity itself as the greatest threat to world peace and attempted to create a new age of technological singularity via humanity's extinction. In all cases, Ultron's plans would mostly constitute genocide, but species aren't a protected group, so Ultron's actions don't apply. My verdict, not guilty. Loki is the god of mischief, the adopted son of Odin and Frigga, and the adoptive brother of Thor and Hela. As a frost giant, Loki was adopted by the Asgardian royal family, but when his father, Laufey, left him behind as a baby. Loki grew up having a close relationship with Thor, although he was envious because he felt he was living in his shadow. His invasion of Earth in the first Avengers film isn't what brings him to this list. During the first Thor film, Loki attempts to attack Jotunheim and wipe out the Frost Giants. Due to the planned nature of the attack and the fact that the Frost Giants are a subgroup in the Norse mythos, define Loki's plot as genocide. Due to his actions, Loki is guilty of attempt to commit genocide. Because he worked alone, there is no conspiracy involved.
There is no God! That's why I stepped in!
The High Evolutionary is the main antagonist of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. He's a space-faring alien cyborg scientist and the founder of Orgo Corp, who aimed to conduct illegal experiments upon lower life forms, such as animals and children, and turn them into anthropomorphic humanoids to create what he deems the perfect society. The High Evolutionary's primary motivation is scientific advancement and creating perfect species. His goal is to enhance and evolve life forms, not to destroy a specific group. This is a key distinction from genocide, which targets established groups. Subjects are usually individuals or species he has created or modified. My verdict, not guilty, based on non-specific destruction.
Before there was time, before there was anything, there was nothing. And before there was nothing, There were monsters.
The Lich is the main antagonist of the Adventure Time animated TV show. He is an ancient undead sorcerer who's bent on the eradication of all life in the multiverse until nothing but himself remains. According to the Lich, he was one of the monsters created before time existed, which means he is older than existence itself. He began to worship the embodiment of chaos, gold, and vowed to bring him about the extinction of all life in the universe to appease him. He came to Earth in the form of a catalyst comet which caused the extinction of dinosaurs. The reason why the Lich can't be made guilty of genocide is that all life in the universe isn't a protective group of life. It's just all life. Genocide is an act taken against a specific subgroup. My verdict, not guilty based on non-specific destruction. Buddy Pine, formerly known as Incrediboy and better known as Syndrome, is the main antagonist of Pixar's The Incredibles, who's the former biggest fan and wannabe sidekick turned archenemy of Mr. Incredible. He became a supervillain bent on destroying him and everything he holds dear, as well as eradicating the very concept of supers in the world. Syndrome has killed dozens of superheroes and plans on killing more, but he isn't genocidal because he doesn't appear to hate people with superpowers, just those who engage in hero work. Because of this, he isn't genocidal by the time he's defeated. My verdict, not guilty. Tom Riddle, later known as Voldemort, is the main antagonist of the Harry Potter series. He's the heir of Salazar Slytherin. Voldemort's goals were only to fulfill his role as Slytherin's heir, but as years went on, however, he expanded his ambitions into taking over the entire wizarding world and shaping it under his and Slytherin's wizard supremacist views. Because magical humans are covered as part of our new enhanced humans clause, all of Voldemort's crimes stand. These include mass murder, terrorism, psychological abuse, forced discrimination, and many more. These were also crimes that he encouraged his followers to commit, thus implicating him in their actions. Due to his and his followers' actions motivated by a belief in magical supremacy, Lord Voldemort is guilty of conspiracy to commit genocide, due to his efforts to gain power and his ultimate plan to attack the Muggle world, and direct and public incitement to commit genocide, due to the increasing of tensions between wizards and the increasing belief in wizard supremacy. Omni-Man is a member of the Viltrumite race, a humanoid species of extraterrestrial origin who possess super strength, super speed, and virtual immortality. He was tasked with conquering planets to spread the Viltrumite Empire and arrived on Earth to infiltrate their society to weaken the chance for them to defend themselves. Omni-Man has a lot of crimes that could be labeled as genocidal, but sadly, prejudice against other species isn't covered as genocidal intent. The conquest could be called nationalistic, but the ideology of the Viltrumite Empire is based in their biological supremacy. My verdict, not guilty by reason of acts committed on other species. Emperor Bellos is the main antagonist of the Owl House. Originally a human named Philip Whittabane, he arrived in the Boiling Isles from Gravesfield, Connecticut during the mid-1600s in pursuit of his brother Caleb. Due to his inherent intense hatred of witches and magic, which he gained additional resentment due to the Isles' prejudice against humans, Philip would eventually conspire to eliminate the Isles and its inhabitants as a whole in an attempt to save humanity from their supposed wickedness. Oh boy. Now, humans with magic are covered under the Genocide Convention and the new clause we've established, but the magical creatures of the Boiling Isles are not, of which many of them are elves, which aren't humans. Liz is a human who can use magic, but her death alone wouldn't constitute genocide. The only way that Bellos could get charged would be if we had a clearer connection between his likely puritanical religious ideology and his crimes, which would classify the inhabitants of the Boiling Isles as a religious group and his extermination of them as an act of religious violence. So, as far as we know, not guilty, but given he's from Connecticut in the 1600s, probably. I'm including these two Fire Lords from Avatar: The Last Airbender because they both commit similar crimes which are connected despite taking place over 100 years apart. Fire Lord Sozin was the ruler of the Fire Nation from 58 BG until his death in 20 AG and the instigator of the 100-Year War. Under his rulership, the Air Nomads were killed in order for Sozin to consolidate his power. This attack was well planned, and Sozin increased the militarization and nationalism of Fire Nation citizens. Fire Lord Ozai was the ruler of the Fire Nation during the final years of the 100-Year War. Reigning as Fire Lord from 95 to 100 AG, continuing the 100 Years' War, Ozai conquered to increase firebending supremacy. He almost completely wiped out the Southern Water Tribe, and his final plan was to burn the entire Earth Kingdom by using the power of Sozin's comet. Due to both of their actions motivated by a belief in firebending supremacy, Fire Lord Sozin and Ozai are guilty of genocide, the acts taken against other bending kingdoms, conspiracy to commit genocide, the long amount of planning committing these acts required, and the direct and public incitement to commit genocide due to the increasing of tensions between the Fire Nation and other benders.